Hi, Sherry Truhlar with Red Apple Auctions. Today, I want to talk about what is working best for me and my clients as we are starting to do more of these hybrid events. Now, I don't have to tell any of you that we've had so many changes, so much to learn since March of 2020. It's been a tough 2 years, exciting in some ways, but it's been tough. I mean, if work hasn't been tough, then your personal life has been tough. It certainly has been for me. Just all kinds of things that have been happening with regards to change. And when we're looking at these events that we've been doing, for me, it's not only just been about the technology that we've been having to learn and how to integrate that and make it work best, but also this just new clients. Some of you are going to remember that in March, I had my very first, what's it called? I don't even remember what it's called now. Bracket, March Madness bracket. I had a client and they were selling off more or less like a chance to compete in different March Madness fundraising event. And so I had to learn all about the college teams and the players and what their strengths were. And then I created my own bracket from that, which didn't do very well. But nonetheless, the idea is that I had never done that before. Certainly, I couldn't have told you the mascots of different teams or anything like that, colors, anything. Had to learn a lot of that. But then just even this past weekend, over Labor Day weekend, I was working with another new client. And in that case, it's aircraft. It's a specific type of airframe. They raise money for safety as it relates to that particular airframe. Again, I'm not an expert on planes or flight, but I got ramped up fairly quickly. Not an expert, but got ramped up well enough that I could talk about it for this past weekend in Nashville in order to manage that event itself. So just lots of new things, lots of change for all of us over the last 2 years. Now, with regards to these hybrid events, which again, people in the room, but people also participating from their home or watch parties or wherever. What I have found that seems to be working best right now, again, we had a hybrid event in Nashville this past weekend, is I'm preferring it when there's one person who's bidding on behalf of all of the online bidders. Now, what I have done in the past with some of these hybrid events is I was monitoring the technology, watching all of the people that were coming in. So I could see that John online bid, but Kevin in the room now bid, and now Joanne, who's online bid. And that was pretty overwhelming to manage everything that was going on. What I'm preferring to do now is to shift that responsibility to a volunteer or staff member who is watching all of the online bidding. So from my perspective as auctioneer, I'm watching the room, and then I'm just going ahead and keeping an eye as well on that staff member or volunteer who's raising their paddle on behalf of all of the online bidders. In this sense, it's very similar to a Christie's auction in New York City, where they would have 3 distinct areas for bidders. One on the right-hand side were all of your phone bidders. Then you had your left-hand side would be like all the internet bidders. And then they had their in-person guests, bidders that were right there, and the auctioneers watching all 3 of those. So from my perspective, I'm sitting here watching the crowd, and if that online bidder raises their hand, then I'm taking that. I'm at 4,000 with the online bidder. Would it get 4,250? Now I'm looking for 4,250. That might be in the room, or again, the staff member or volunteer might raise their paddle again because now they've got another online bidder who's bidding against that $4,000 bid, 4,250. I'm at 4,250 with the online bidder. 45. Anybody in the room at 45? And so we're continuing the auction in that way. Now, this past weekend, they had many more people in the room than online. 300 people in the room. They were hoping for 100 online. I don't even think they came close to that. But going forward with some of my other clients, I know we're going to have more activity online because those numbers are going to be flipped. We'll have like 100 in the room and 300 people participating online. And when that happens, there's going to be a lot more activity that's taking place online. Now, one of the points to keep in mind as well over the virtual experience is that certainly in Zoom and in some other software applications, depending on the application, I was able to acknowledge bidders by name. Now, as we move into this hybrid realm, we're back to paddle numbers. So in the case of this new client this past weekend, I didn't know the people in the room. I knew a few of the people, maybe they participated on the committee and so forth. But for the most part, I don't know these people that are sitting in the room by name. I know them by paddle number when they raise their paddle. So it's 182 is in the lead, right? Now we're going to an online bidder. Again, don't know the name, don't really need to. I'm just acknowledging the fact that that staff member raised their hand and we've got an online bidder. So we're kind of back to the nameless auction. we're back to ensuring everybody is a number and not a name. Whereas in the virtual environment, we saw more names that came into play. And you know what? You can make arguments both ways. Certainly in pre-COVID days, for silent auctions, I was always a big advocate of you really do want to convert everybody to a paddle number. Makes it a lot easier for you. And we won't go down that path here today. But the idea is that paddle numbers is a lot easier to track than names is to track. So now we're kind of going back to that. We're going back to this idea of paddle numbers instead. So that's where I'm kind of working with my clients and moving forward, and where I'm thinking right now with regards to hybrid events. And we'll see if there's further changes as we make our way through the rest of 2021 and 2022. If you are looking for an auction company to work with who can bring you to the next level, please feel free to reach out. I'm at redappleauctions.com. You can go to the contact page and set up an appointment directly with me, where we'd be able to visit with you about your event. Hey, I'm Sherry Truhlar with Red Apple Auctions. As always, good luck to you in your fundraising gala.